Well, in its review of youth justice in Jersey, the prison reform charity, the Howard League, argues the former system of penalties and rewards at the Secure Young People's Unit, Greenfields, would be unlawful in England and Wales. Now, the charity was invited by the former Health Minister, Senator Stuart Sivray, to review care services for Jersey's young offenders following concerns about the existing system. The Howard League is confident the use of the Grand Prix system, as it was called, is no longer used at Greenfields, but it argues the potential impact on present and future practice is considerable. So, how did the Grand Prix system come into being, and what is its legacy on practices at the centre today? Well, in a moment we'll be hearing from the current manager of the centre, but first BBC Jersey met Residential Services Manager Joe Kennedy, the instigator of that Grand Prix system at Greenfields. He showed us the Jersey farmhouse next door to the new centre, which was once the secure unit where young people who were remanded in custody were sent until they were dealt with by the court. Now, in the autumn of 2004, Joe Kennedy was a senior prison officer with training responsibility, was called in by the then prison governor Mike Kirby to assess the situation at Greenfields. The police had been to the centre in riot gear. Mr Kennedy says the politicians responsible had asked for a detachment of prison officers to go there to restore order. He told BBC Jersey what he had found.
I have to say that I was shocked when I did arrive, and I was completely understanding of why they were asking for help. As I entered the building, there was an atmosphere of impending disaster everywhere you went. My understanding was that the manager who'd been placed here had gone off at short notice not to return. There were staff leaving without returning, and there was fairly widespread disorder and bad behaviour and damage throughout the building.
He says staff were doing their best to maintain order in a deteriorating situation.
I learnt in the following weeks that it was by no means uncommon for young people to leave the building, and if a staff member, this is notwithstanding the fact that they're remanded in custody, if the staff member refused to open a door for them to let them escape, which is effectively what they were doing, they would pick a chair up and throw it through one of the windows and follow it.
And Mr Kennedy says it was against this background he introduced the Grand Prix system.
This was what I walked into. Now, the staff were there, and goodness knows how. They showed remarkable courage and dedication to continue turning up for work, because it seemed they were on a hiding to nothing. So I reported this back to Mike Kirby, who, as I say, was my then prison governor, and he asked what I felt could be done to restore some order, and that's where the Grand Prix system came into it.
Now, Grand Prix uses racing analogies to describe its system of penalties and rewards. It prescribed the pits, a period of at least 24 hours in a cell for bad behaviour. It lasted for a minimum of 3 days. If a resident was in the pits, they spent 24 hours in their cell. The official document uses the term cell rather than bedroom. During those 24 hours, the residents slept, ate and drank in the cell and, dependent on behaviour, would be allowed 1 hour's exercise. On days 2 and 3 in the pits, residents were educated, would eat and spend their recreational time in what was called the vestibule area. To move on to days 2 and 3, a resident in the pits had to demonstrate 24 hours of good behaviour and good language. Now, the system has been condemned as a violation of young people's rights. The Howard League argues it would be unlawful in England and Wales. Now, Joe Kennedy challenges claims young people were in solitary confinement. He says those in the so-called pit lane were attended by staff and physically engaged every 15 minutes with a member of staff nearby at all times. During that time, they would have meals in their rooms where they would stay for the greater part of the day, apart from when they were taken out with a member of staff for exercise on a risk assessment basis. Now, Mr. Kennedy claims the Grand Prix system restored order at the centre.
It's a very structured system, and it's been criticised, and in hindsight, perhaps rightly, that some of the wording is unfortunate, and some people have suggested that it's probably a little too male-orientated, and I accept that, although I have to say the delivery of it belies that, because if anything, I found that the young people here got it straight away, and the staff struggled with some of the nuances.
Now, BBC Jersey asked Mr. Kennedy whether the system was used more as a means to restore order than for the welfare of the young person.
Well, I think they go hand in hand. Certainly, there was a crisis. The police attendance and the level of absconding and everything else had caused many people to ask some very direct questions, not least the local residents, I guess. And they wanted it put right, but you can't just go in and say, behave yourselves. There has to be some structure to support that. The staff require direction. Security is about good relationships between staff and the people who are obliged to live here. Security is about a predictable, structured, meaningful routine. That the people who live there know that they can express themselves to this level, they know they can behave in this way, and they know what to expect from the place.
He argues now the centre has moved, there is no longer a need for Grand Prix.
The Grand Prix system was necessary for this environment. It's not necessary in there. There are structures and functions that occur there. It is secure in itself. If in this old building that we're sitting in now, if somebody became so disturbed, as we sit here now, they could smash through that window and be off and place themselves at incredible risk, not least the fact that they've committed another offence. In the new building, that won't happen because it's designed to support youngsters in crisis. This is a farmhouse. This was designed for whoever lived here once to operate in a normal domestic environment. It was never envisaged that this would contain some of our most challenging young people.
Joe Kennedy, who instigated the Grand Prix system at Greenfields in the autumn of 2004. He was speaking at the former farmhouse, which used to house Jersey's secure centre for young people before it moved to nearby new premises. He says the regime was necessary at the time to rescue the centre from chaos. But what was it like